largely irrelevant. So, the number 10 most frequently cited nonconformity. Uh-oh. Oh, I see. Presentation from the beginning. No? It's not changing slides. Let's see how we do that. We go back. Is that not? Okay, it works now. Oh, I'm sorry, I was pressing the wrong button again, or was I? Okay. Okay, so it's the criteria that was used, 70,025 plus the requirements, specific requirements in the test methods, and it's in 2013. We have, in some fields, we have extra requirements, like the Association of Official Analytical Chemists has additional, in effect, quality control requirements for analytical chemistry, food chemistry laboratories. So, number 10, proficiency testing nonconformities is either lack of participation or lack of corrective action response. You get a report that says your results were outliers, were in effect unacceptable, and then you take no action to investigate why it might be an outlier, or what was the cause of your getting an unacceptable result. Number 9, the whole idea of controlling your supplies, if you will, the purchasing function. Your purchase orders lacked sufficient detail, perhaps. Supplies and consumables were not verified as meeting your specifications before use. Suppliers are not evaluated, or no criteria for determining what's an acceptable supplier. Internal audit was the 8th most cited nonconformity. There was no schedule, no advanced planning, no audit program for the year. Inadequate procedure, maybe not fully covering all elements of the management system of the laboratory. Independence and qualification of the auditors could be an issue. Sometimes in very small laboratories, it's very hard to get somebody that's an independent internal auditor. I personally don't make too much of a big deal about that unless it's quite obvious that they're auditing their own work. I mean, that's clearly not acceptable.
Peter,
yes?
The standard doesn't require anymore to be independent.
Yes.
They require that you don't audit your own work because that reason you mentioned. So that's one of the new changes in this standard.
Well, 2011, in the latest version, one of the principles is independence, right? But in the wording of that section, they say sometimes it's very difficult to have an independent auditor. So what the fallback is, as long as they're impartial, and I unsuccessfully argued in the working group that the principle is impartiality, not independence. And I lost that argument. Alistair, the work convener, put me down on that. He did not let me. It's a sea change in the internal audit world. Everybody recognizes, yeah, fundamental principle, independence, independence. You can't have somebody auditing their own work. I mean, that's quite obvious, I think. But, so that emphasis, but the key issue is, can the auditor be impartial in doing the audit? A small laboratory, if you hire or use somebody within the staff of a small laboratory, it's very hard for them to actually be independent. Very hard. And so that I think the guidance in 2011 makes sense. You don't have to hire somebody from the outside to come in and do the audit, which would be, if you truly wanted independence, you'd hire somebody from the outside to do it. Mm-hmm. Anyway, number 7, control of records, complete records for repeatability of tests. That's an important principle, by the way. You want to retain sufficient records so that you can recapitulate, in effect, repeat your test. I mean, if it's a destructive test, you cannot obviously repeat the test in the same sample, but you need records that demonstrate exactly how you did the test, who did it, what's the equipment, what time, etc. So records traceability. Measurement traceability and measurement uncertainty. Use of unaccredited Cal Labs, that's no longer a big deal anymore, because in the United States particularly, we have over 1,000 calibration labs accredited either by A2LA or other accreditation bodies in the United States. Improper reference standards for in-house calibrations or in-house verifications. Number 5, test and calibration methods and test method validation is not adequate. So in-house laboratory does their own development of a test. They haven't adequately validated it. Or the test method is not appropriate or complete. And of course, measurement uncertainty associated with your testing. That, of course, is even stronger in the new standard. Document control, this is the 4th most. I think I thought it was 3rd or 2nd, but document control. A lot of times people do not recognize that external documents that they use should be, in effect, controlled. How do you keep up to date? How do you make sure you have the latest version? What's your source or sources for making sure that you have the latest versions? So the master list is not current. Yeah, that can, every time you make a change to one document, the master list automatically has to change. It reminds me of an argument we had. Is a master list a document or a record? Well, it's a document that's used to control your documents, right? Part of your document control is to have this record to keep. But it's a record, right? It's both. 9001 folks conveniently decided, well, why are we making this distinction? Let's call it documented information. Well, it's both procedures as well as records. So we don't have this argument about which clause of the standard applies, the records control or the document control. So they've eliminated that, which is all nice. It's more flexible. And obsolete documents are in use. How often, especially labs that have converted to, say, everything electronic, the official versions are electronic, but there's some folks that, I don't like working with my computer, I want a paper copy. So they print out their document, it's put in their drawer, their personal stash of guidance, and that's what they use. And then, of course, the document gets revised, and they neglect to replace it. That could be significant, a significant problem that they're using an obsolete method or something has significantly changed, and they're still using the old version. It also could be very trivial. Nevertheless, it's common. That's common that people do that, and you hate to be draconian about it and go through everybody's personal files, get rid of those paper copies. You need to use the electronic version in all cases. 3rd, equipment is missing or not appropriate. Maintenance records are a problem. Maintenance is improperly performed or the calibration isn't done. Second most, the specific program requirements that are either regulatory or imposed by the accreditation body, supplement to 70,025, are not met. They don't give their program requirements enough attention. And the number one issue, and I think this is music to my ears, because it means the assessors have concentrated on those specific conformity assessment tests, specific test methods that we're recognizing their competence to perform. And if they're not doing them correctly, obviously they shouldn't be on their scope of accreditation, or they need it, obviously take corrective action. And that tells me, I think, fortunately, our assessors are doing a risk-based thinking with regard to doing assessments. Get in the laboratory and see how they're doing the tests. That's what we're recognizing the laboratory for, their competence in running tests. Quite often, we spend too much time, I think, too much time looking at the quality management system documents and not enough time in the laboratory. And we've had this debate about getting prepared to do an assessment, prepared to do an audit. What do we start doing first? Typically, it's the quality management system documentation, the quality manual, which, by the way, you don't need anymore. You can have associated documents that address quality policy objectives, etc. You don't have to have what's called a manual. Anyway, you generally don't get rid of it if you haven't already. I'm not suggesting it. But that's the first thing assessors get, auditors get, the quality manual, right? If we're recognizing competence to perform specific tests, I want to see, first and foremost, evidence of competence to perform those tests that are going to be on the scope. So I've come around to the fact that let's get into the laboratory before we even worry about the quality system stuff. Maybe we get the internal audits and management review records before we get in as part of document review. We've already looked at that. We've already reviewed the manual. We don't have to sit down for half a day to interview people regarding those things. We go in the laboratory for two purposes. One, to determine competence, and also to understand whether or not quality policies, objectives have been effectively communicated to the working level. Right, just talking to top managers about the quality system doesn't tell me whether or not it's effectively implemented at the working level. You can also look at document control and records control at the same time that you're talking with folks about their specific tests. Anyways, that's a pet peeve of mine is the strategy. And that's, again, risk-based thinking, I think, for assessors and auditors. What's important? What's significant? That's why folks from the accreditation community argue that it's a superior form of recognition than quality system certification for a laboratory. What we're interested in and what people that use you, are you competent to perform the tests? That's what I need to know. And of course, a lot of people argue, who cares about the management system? All I want to know is whether they can run the tests. That's a little extreme, but we're requiring you to have a management system to prevent your tests from breaking down and providing incorrect results. Okay, enough of that. Back to the presentation, or the exercise. You're number 10, the last group, right? We have 1, 2, 3. You've lost one. Hopefully you'll be back. 4, 5, 6, 7. Did I get this right? Was it all 5 of you? 8. We have new people. 9 to 9. You can, what? Well, okay. We have only 2 people over here. Maybe you can join that group. And that's number 10, right? Could you, when you prepare your report on answering these 3 questions, could you don't have to repeat the question. You can put 1, 2, 3. You can certainly do it in Spanish, not English. You're not doing it for my benefit. You're doing it for everybody's benefit, okay? You want, again, no more than a 10-minute presentation. Be prepared to maybe answer any questions about your presentation. Hopefully you can do it on a computer that we can capture and work until 4:30. 35 minutes, is that correct? 45 minutes? Now, at the end of 4:30, some of you may not be ready yet. You're typing it into the computer. Those of you who are ready,
4:30 we start sending the information to the team.
Yes. Also, las personas de biología nos hicieron favor de traer una USB nuevecita. Entonces, también los que no tengan correo electrónico pueden grabarlo aquí directamente, la presentación. Como no hace más de 10 minutos, yo les sugiero no más de 3 slides, porque si no, no se va a cumplir el tiempo. Entonces, bueno, les encargamos el ejercicio, por favor, ¿no?
yes,
Can we
more.
discuss?
Let me turn this.
Yeah. Because